I joined BAE Systems Applied Intelligence 14 months ago. And for those of you that don't know who we are, so we are the cyber security defence part of BAE Systems, the group. So we're a 4,500 person organisation against an 80,000 person organisation, and really quite unique in the services that we deliver compared to the rest. So just to give you some ideas, we build the Typhoon, we build frigates and submarines. We sign deals with governments for 25 years for £35 billion. But in the cybersecurity part of the business, we're really very different. So our cycle is around sort of 6 to 9 months in terms of the services that we deliver. And of course, it's sitting within that technical space, which is quite different. So we have demands across the organisation that can be for apprentice welders through to solutions architects and cybersecurity specialists with quite distinct security clearance requirements. So when I came into the organisation 14 months ago into Applied Intelligence, it was just off the back of a significant amount of restructure that they'd just gone through. And basically what they determined was that they'd been losing £1 million a week, which seems mad that they perhaps didn't realise that, but we had at the time a new CEO and CFO. So they had to go back to group and say, we need to fundamentally change the way that we deliver our services. And what they did was they moved a lot of the key activity, a lot of our delivery centres into low-cost centres, so out of Guildford and London, for example. And what that meant was we were moving key talent into Leeds, into Poland, into Malaysia, and into Manila. And when I arrived, they had decimated the recruitment team globally. So we were down to about 9 people. And anecdotally, what I was being told was recruitment was broken. But they didn't quite know what that meant. They had a lot of anecdotal stories to tell me why that might be the case. So you can see on my slide here, we've got a little purple squirrel. It's actually quite a large purple squirrel, all things considered, compared to the size of the tree. And we sort of talk about purple squirrels as the talent that are incredibly hard for us to find in the market. So I'm just going to talk to one slide, but just to break it down, I sort of feel the transformation comes into 3 buckets. And the first one is to put out the fires and understand the problem statement that we had and genuinely move away from anecdotal stories into something that starts to build a business case around why and what we would change. The second piece is, which I feel is the piece that we've just finished, which is don't build a solution for Narnia. We had lots of promises within the organisation around what we would achieve within a set amount of time, and the truth is it doesn't always work that way. So build a solution with a huge amount of agility into it and be prepared to change on the fly. And then the third piece is really where we are now, which is there's a portion of our organisation that are the purple squirrels, and they're fundamental to our business. So how do we go after them? They're quite a different profile, and I'll talk about that. So as I said, when I joined, we were just sort of transitioning from this difficult time of change into high growth. And we still had high attrition. Invariably, when you go through a change as an organisation and you unsettle people and you move key skills and friends and talent out of the organisation and new roles into new locations, it brings about I sort of talk about the ripple effects, if you like, of that change. So when I walked in, we were having anywhere in the region of sort of mid to high 20% attrition, which was a problem. We had poor workforce planning. So when I joined, bearing in mind we decimated the recruitment team, when I walked through the door, we had close to 1,000 requisitions that were live and a team of total of 9 recruiters globally. So when the business said to me, you know what, they're transactional, they're non-responsive, I don't feel I'm getting a service, they were absolutely right. And how could you? Because when I talked to the recruiters, they were doing a 360-degree roll, and they had maybe 100 requisitions against their name. And so for any of you that work in that space, that's nigh on impossible to deliver with any level of quality. So we'd lost our seat at the table, our voice at the table as well. So the head of recruitment had moved out as part of that change, and they hadn't replaced them. And so what we were able to do then as I came through the door was to start having some real conversations around, what is the burning platform? What do we need to go after, and how are we going to go after this? And if I'm honest, when I sat with the head of government, he said to me, Beth, I think this was day 2. As a result of not having the people through the door, I'm leaving £12 million worth of revenue on the table with the British government. That's unacceptable. I need you to solve that problem. And the truth was, actually, when you have that burning platform with the organisation and it's directly tied to revenue, actually, you really get their time and attention, because actually you are fundamental to their success. So we sat down and we looked at the data, and we moved away from these anecdotal stories and started to build a picture that said, actually, we have a mutual responsibility here with the business around our ability to bring talent through the door. You say it takes too long, and you're right. We measured it, it was around 148 days. So if you think about these people as being, a huge portion of them being revenue generating, that's unacceptable. And by the way, that's not 148 days until they start, it's until they've accepted their offer verbally. And if you want to overlay any additional components, which we do very often around the security checks and the background checks that they need to go through, people that were opening requisitions may not see any tangible benefit of those individuals until the following year. So you can imagine this sort of intel was quite insightful. So that workforce planning piece became a critical part of our ability to be able to bring the talent in. We then obviously needed to put out the fires and say, right, 9 recruiters is clearly insufficient, but also 360-degree recruiters, when I would sit and talk to them about what their work day was, I said, how do you prioritise your days? And they said, well, it depends who's shouting the loudest. I'm like, that's an inefficient way of working, frankly. We need to tie it to the roles that we deem to be critical. Not all requisitions are created equally. Let's make sure that we're putting time and attention against the roles that are going to have the biggest impact on the business, and let's start measuring that. Let's build out the team so that we have the right skills and expertise. So to give you an example, we had a couple of people that were doing some admin roles. And when you look at the total cost of them, and they were through an agency and they were on site, they're costing us around sort of £50,000 a year and up. So we built capability over in Manila and had a follow the sun model. And so that enables us now to have critical talent tied to the time zones of the business with really great skills and expertise, and they cost £6,500 a year, so quite a difference. And what that meant was I could go back and say, I need to upskill the level and the grade of my recruiters, because we need to move them from being transactional to being strategic. And by doing that, we can take away the administrative burden they carry on a day-to-day basis. So we got permission to do that, and suddenly we were building the organisation in a way that was reflective of where the business was sitting. So now we've got capability sitting in those key geographies, delivering locally, as well as the support in Manila, which is not only the administrative component, but it's also the sourcing team as well. And what that meant was, again, when I talked to the recruiters, it was so requisition-based. So it was like every day would start again. We were looking for, I might be looking for a project manager today, and I'd fill the requisition, then I'd sort of wipe my brow, and then I'd turn around, and then tomorrow I'd be looking for another project manager, and then I would look at that requisition, I'd start the whole process again. So we had to realise, actually, not only do we need a differentiated approach, but actually we also have to recognise that we have key skills and expertise that we need on an ongoing basis. So let's start to build a pipeline around that. Our issues were so foundational. We didn't have a relationship with Glassdoor, for example. We had a rating off the back of the transformation of 2.4, which is pretty bloody low. And so we had a requirement to build that up and build our brand back out into the market. And make sure that people understood that we were a great place to work again after the change and there was opportunity. So we started to do that. We increased our pieces with regards to LinkedIn, building campaigns, making sure that we were talking directly to the types of talent with the profiles that we need in an ongoing basis. Everyone's faced with the same issues around D&I, but I can tell you in our space, women represent 12% of the population of the skills that we want to bring through the organisation. But we as a business recognise that 12% is not enough. So we've got huge amounts of activity going into that space. And then really building out the capabilities, I said, with the recruiters to make sure that we've got the right skills and expertise and level that can partner with the business, that are getting closer to understanding their requirements, but not in that just simple tactical way. Actually, we need to move to being more demand-led. So there are people in our organisation that we need to hire, and we cannot find them readily in the market. They're not sitting there waiting for a phone call. And these are our purple squirrels. So if you think about the profile, and some of it can be quite extreme, but this is the reality. Some of these guys that are software engineers that have the security clearance that we need are literally sitting in bunkers on a day-to-day basis. They have no access to their phone. They have no access to a personal computer. They can't because of the environment. They're in total lockdown. and they are utterly bought into the mission and the value of the work that they're doing. They are defending the nation. They are protecting children from paedophiles, and therefore they are not easy to access, and they are inherently nervous and sceptical about putting their details on any platform. And in fact, if you have certain levels of security, you cannot put that detail on your LinkedIn profile or anything else. So our challenge for that part of our business is quite unique. And the intent is, if we can sort out the 80%, that is the standard parts of the business, that are the consultants, that are the other software engineers, that are our future talent, that are our project managers, actually now we really need to drive the lens and the focus on the ones that are most difficult, because they represent such a significant part of our business. And as it stands at the moment, we're hiring 50% more of those individuals than our next competitor. So it's tight. And when they're in those environments, when they're working on those projects, and you can imagine the scrutiny and the types of challenges that they're faced with, or possibly we can't imagine the types of challenges that they're faced with. But actually then getting them to extract themselves from that and move to another organisation and another project is hard. So what we're finding is we need to approach these guys in a very different way. So this is a much more sort of organic process. This is about building that network and being able to engage with them on a level that is meaningful to them. And Sian, who's here today, does a lot of work, and we're profiling these individuals. We talk to the people internally within our organisation and say, well, then how do you find opportunities? And it's GitHub and it's Stack Overflow. And it is through their immediate network of trusted people within the organisations that they work with or have worked with in the past. And that's how they get a sense of who they would want to work for and with in the future. So it's not about posting an advert for us for those individuals. It's not about giving them a call and trying to engage them necessarily. What we're learning is, actually, we need to engage with them in a way that is meaningful to them, that is a slower burn. It can take 18 months to build up the relationships with these individuals, but they're so key to our organisation. So we are looking at the Adepto platform, and we are looking at how we can build our workforce in a way that we will build talent pools in that closed environment, so it's safe for them to engage with us. They're not posting their details externally and visibly. That we can then engage with them in a way that we will invite them to tech talks, which is something that we found to be very successful across all geographies for these guys, because they're so bought into the products and the services that we deliver, that actually if they get to tinker with some of that, then it really starts to engage them. So it's going to be tech talks, it's going to be WebExes, it's going to be unique ways of engaging with them, to the point that they then would perhaps be willing to take a conversation with us when an opportunity comes along. And we still need to sort out this issue with regards to the diversity component. So we've got a lot of key women within our organisation at the technical level and beyond. So we're using those in various events that we're doing more broadly in the business to see if we can continue to pull them in and start to engage with them in that different way. But what we're learning is that one size doesn't fit all. Then off the back of that, we've got the additional challenge, which is the broader organisation. And so a lot of the work that we've done around building the Manila teams and building the hubs and the pipeline of activity has been critical for us to get that momentum. But if you think about the profile of the broader organisation, it's so risk averse. We can't talk about the projects that we do, we can't post it on an advert, and I think we carry that as a badge of honour in many instances. But it makes it very difficult for us to engage in the hearts and minds of talent. And so when we talk to the broader business, and I'm now heading up the transformation for them, that feels like moving the Titanic. So these organisations that build the submarines and build the typhoons, that have been in situ for 40 years, are such a different profile to us, but now we're competing for the same talent in a lot of the same markets. So when we talk about the total talent solution piece, actually now that's becoming more and more relevant to us. Because at the moment we look at a business unit and we say that's the talent for that organisation, or previously we've looked at it and said that's the talent specifically for that business unit. We need to look at that much more broadly now and give opportunity that would say, actually, I could go from here to here, I could go from land to air, from air to AI. And that's a way that we've never engaged with talent in the past. But it's the thing that's going to make us relevant in the future. And we have to stop competing for the same talent. And we find that in many instances we are sitting there, literally at a booth, with BAE Group next door, talking to talent when AI are talking here to software engineers about opportunities. It's ridiculous. So we're looking to blend that. And they're seeing us really as the incubation for innovation and change at the moment to help to drive that sort of bigger entity into the 21st century. But I think it's fair to say that we've still got a long way to go. That's it.